Hi, welcome back to my channel, So Very Domestic. If you're new here, my name's May and I post videos about cooking, baking, homeschooling, and cleaning.
5 sides. Strengthening our introductions.
Sprouts haul from Prime Now. Trader Joe's haul. Today's video is a recipe video. I made 5 freezer meals this weekend to cook every night this week. Usually when it comes to meal planning, I know exactly what I'm going to make for dinner every day that week. So as part of my morning routine, I always do some kind of prep work for dinner. And then I also have a time in the evening when I'm physically making dinner, right? When our homeschool schedule starts up again in late August, we have probably the most time-consuming year we've ever had. They're busy with a lot of new curriculum and new projects. I'll make another video closer to the beginning of the school year to kind of show you everything that we're doing and the different curriculum that we're using. But our days are full, so I don't think I'm gonna really have time every morning to do prep work for dinner. And I would really like to just have a smooth transition from after school time to doing some tidying for the daytime, and then not having to also make a huge mess in my kitchen to make dinner and then clean up from all of that. So that's my motivation behind it. And I'm starting crazy early because I want to make sure that I find recipes that work for everybody. So this first week I made lasagna, burritos, chicken leg quarters and veggies, pierogies, and hamburgers. So far, obviously, I've only done 2 of those meals. We did lasagna on Monday, and then on Tuesday, I think I was going to put in the chicken quarters, but then our besties came over and we had an impromptu barbecue. So it was nice that I had those frozen burgers. Might make burgers or some kind of individually packaged thing, so that when people come over, we have something extra on hand like that that's just easy to do. We'll kind of sit down at the end of the week and decide what are we going to keep in rotation, what are we not going to do again, and what different things we want to try. So we'll see how that goes, and I'll do another one of these maybe next week when we try out a bunch of different recipes. Okay, so this is the first 2 freezer meals out of the, I think, how many am I making? 4, 5 that I'm making. On the right, we have what will eventually be lasagna. I am cooking the ground beef, and then in here I just have crushed tomatoes, tomato paste, 2 cans of crushed tomatoes, tomato paste, and a little bit of oregano, rosemary, basil, thyme. Over here, so this is 2.5 pounds of ground beef for the lasagna. This is another 2.5 pounds of ground beef. This is going to be burritos. Over there is the rice that I'm using. You make a pilaf from scratch and make the burritos with that. It doesn't quite taste right. So burritos are happening and lasagna is happening. My burritos are pretty much done, and my mix for the lasagna is totally done. So I still have to assemble the lasagna. And this actually goes in a Tupperware container in the fridge because we're going to be eating it too soon to freeze it. This, however, I will assemble and then pop in the freezer. I put about a cup, maybe a little bit less, of the sauce that I made for the lasagna in the bottom of this pan. Then I put my first layer of noodles. Apparently they grow as they cook. They're not wiggly, which is kind of disappointing, but anyway. It started with sauce, and then noodles, and then sauce, and then noodles and cheese and sauce, and then noodles and cheese and sauce, and noodles and cheese and sauce. And because these noodles grow, the whole time I've been putting them down like this, and one like that, so that way they can, grow to the edges. So that's my top layer of sauce, and then my top layer of cheese is going to be really, really generous. Now I'll just wrap it in 2 layers of aluminum foil, and then just write on the top what it is so I don't forget. Okay, ta-da! So now I'm done lasagna, and my burrito mix is cooling over here because I don't want to put the lid on it and make a lot of condensation sweat. So I'm going to let that continue cooling off. This can go straight into the freezer, and then I have to clean up this big mess. So right now I just have potatoes and a spice mix that I always make. The spice mix is pepper, there's dried parsley, celery seed, there's basil, there's some crushed bay leaves in there, marjoram, oregano, thyme, a teeny weeny bit of cayenne pepper, the smallest amount for a 1/4 cup of this stuff. There's rosemary, dry mustard, and again a little teeny bit of cumin. Oh, and some garlic powder. Next I'm going to put in some broccoli. Okay, so now we've got carrots and broccoli on top of the potatoes with a little bit more of our seasoning, and I'll throw like maybe a little bit more on top of that, and then I'll put the chicken on top. So I have actually never done this as a freezer meal. Usually I just throw this straight into the oven like this, but I always have water on the bottom of the pan to help cook the vegetables and make sure the chicken doesn't dry out. But I don't know that it makes sense to put water in this before I put it in the freezer, because then basically I'm just making like a vegetable ice cube underneath the chicken. So what I'm going to do when I take it out of the freezer, I'm going to carefully peel the aluminum foil back, pour in like maybe a cup of water. There, it's all about experiments this week. We'll see how it goes. Okay, and now off this goes into the freezer for another day that I don't need to worry about next week. Okay, so right now I'm working on pierogies. So right now they're just washed and peeled, and then I'm boiling water, which I should just put those in there first, but anyway. Okay, so my pierogi dough is happening and it's coming together. It's almost done. Just at the same time, my potatoes are pretty much ready. Okay, so my dough is resting on the counter, and I've got my cheese and hot potatoes mixing up. I'm going to add my salt and pepper. I'm going to chop up about a third of an onion, maybe like almost half an onion. Yeah, and then that's that for the filling. Okay, so this is the pasta machine I use to roll out my dough. I've got 2 sheets over there, and then the rest of my sheets are over here. This is 2 more sheets I cut in half. And then I literally just use a drinking glass. I always use this drinking glass. Anyway, so also bacon is just about ready too. And that's for like the finale, like when you're all done at the very end. So now it's time for boiling the pierogies. I'm doing 6 at a time, whoops, so they don't stick together. The rest of them are over here. I'm making 2 trays of pierogies with 18 pierogies in each tray, and I'm boiling them and frying them 6 at a time so they don't get stuck together. So we're boiling 6. As soon as they come to the top, they're done. So I'm gonna wait for all of them to come to the top, and then I'm gonna move them over here and fry them with a little bit of butter and some chopped up red onion. And then I'm gonna move them here to these 2 pans and top them with shredded cheese and crumbled bacon. The second batch of 6 is over there boiling, and the first batch is over here on the flat top. And now the third batch of 6 has just been popped into the water, and the first is pretty much done and the second is just starting. You just want them to have like a little tiny bit of a crust, like not even all the way around, like really just in like the middle part, just like in that middle part. Definitely not brown like all the way around. These are done, and I can move these into the pan and scooch those guys over. I'll flip them and scooch them over, and then by the time they're moved over, these guys will be ready. It's a pretty sweet little assembly line here. Okay, so all of the pierogies are done, and I'm gonna sprinkle some bacon over top and some cheese, and then I'm gonna wrap them up and put them in the freezer. Okay, done. I've got 2 trays of pierogies, and I'll usually make like a garden salad or a Caesar salad or whatever everybody's feeling like that night to go with. So it's not just this, it's like this plus a salad. And I mean, the damage to the kitchen is not that bad. That's clean but cooling off. And then I just have to wash the cutting board and the pot. Yeah, like when you do these freezer meals, you really have to clean as you go, because otherwise it's a nightmare. So far so good. Now I'm gonna make burgers. Very last freezer meal prep of the day are hamburgers. I got this Schmidt Bros burger press from Crate & Barrel, and it works really well. You just fill up each side with about 1/4 cup, a little bit more if you want to try to overstuff it, which I routinely do. And then you just squish this down on top, and then you've got burgers that won't fall apart on the grill. I don't even worry about measuring it. I just put in enough to kind of fill it like this. And then you just take the top part and smush it down. Ta-da! This one could have used a bit more. So it's kind of a trial and error thing. This is only the second time I've used it, but I love it. I'm actually going to wrap them each individually. I watched a video done by Jamrael's Large Family Table, and I'll actually link that video in my description. She made a ton of burgers for her family, which if everybody in her family has a burger, that's 9 burgers. So, and I'm sure people have more than one. Anyway, so instead of dealing with the big mess of doing it in the oven or dealing with it on the grill, she actually wraps up each burger in aluminum foil and then cooks them like in a packet. So I wrap them once and then I wrap them again. So the first time the seam's on the bottom. So then the second time I wrap them, I put the seam face down, and then there's a seam on the top. So it's one seam on the top, one seam on the bottom, and then I'm just gonna cook them like that. Like I'm not going to take them out and do anything to them and rewrap them or whatever. I'm just gonna leave them exactly as they are, and then put them in the oven then. If you've done this before and have suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. In the meantime, I'm just gonna have to experiment. Okay, here we go. I can hardly believe it, but I'm done, and I'm really looking forward to see how this works out this week. This is my overflow freezer. Yeah, I'll just show you the other stuff that's in it. Those are ice packs that go in lunch boxes, but we also use them for, you know, if you bonk your knee or something and need an ice pack, we use those. And I always have a pound of bacon in the freezer. My 11-year-old is madly in love with toaster waffles, and for a long time I just wouldn't allow it. But she can make them for herself, and she has them kind of randomly throughout the day, and I make sure it gets balanced with reasonable food at the same time. So she has her toaster waffles. Other people eat them too, but they're basically like her fave. I always try to keep 2 loaves of bread in the freezer and 1 in the cupboard, so that as soon as one of these loaves comes out to defrost, I buy another one and put it in. Same goes for the hot dogs under there, especially when we have a bunch of kids over, because I'll just feed everybody hot dogs, and that huge pack will be half gone after one group of kids comes by when you add them to my kids. And we have a snow cone machine over there, and so I always have to have a big bag of ice on hand. The frozen corn on the cob is not my favorite, but Miss Daphne loves corn on the cob. Like, she loves it so much that she'll eat it with just about anything, so I always have frozen corn on the cob on hand. And these 5 trays are all my work this weekend. Okay, so the top 2 trays, the very top one is chicken thighs and root vegetables with spices and stuff on them. And then underneath there is the lasagna. And then these 2 on top here are the pierogies. And the one on the bottom is 10 hamburgers. I'll film a little bit of each of these freezer meals as we make them. I didn't film anything about the lasagna on Monday, so I won't have anything for that. And I did actually do a quick video when we barbecued with our friends, so I do have the burgers too. But yeah, and then next week when I have 5 different recipes I'm doing, I'll kind of like review how these turned out when we cook them again, and whether we're going to keep them or like not do them again or whatever, and then the new recipes that I'm going to try out next week. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more updates.